All right, what's up, guys? Captain Chris Blanchette here from Coast to Cove Charters. We also got Chip Bragg. He is the captain at Sea and Stripes Guide Service, and we're going to go ahead and do another fishing report for Lake Murray. This time, we obviously kind of skipped a little bit in November. The holidays snuck up on us. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a late fall, early winter fishing report, kind of what we're seeing on the lake, how the fish are acting, some of the conditions that we're seeing as well. And man, there's been a lot of changes out there to the water. So
Lot.
I'll kind of jump in real quick and just tell you what I've seen through the guide trips that I've had probably over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks. The waters were up there kind of pushing 80 degrees at the very beginning of November, 75 to 80. Since then, we've had the first front right there around Thanksgiving that really pushed those water temperatures down into the mid 60s. And since then, we had a really, really big front in early December. And basically, what that's done, gosh, it got down, what would you say, Chip, down into like the upper teens, low 20s.
Oh yeah, it was.
And
Yeah, I had some really cold mornings out there.
for air temperatures, we're doing fishing, we'd have to literally sit there and dip the rod tips in the water because they'd ice up.
Yeah, I had some frozen reels, frozen bait tanks, and heaters on the boat, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's been a wild, whirlwind of weather for the air temperature. So that has in turn pushed the water temperatures to now, which is, kind of that middle of December time period, into the mid to upper 50s. Obviously we had a warm day today, and we actually are going to have a really cold night with another front coming in. So that's what we're seeing as far as water temperature. Man, it's been all over the place. It's really fluctuated. We can really kind of speak on what that's doing to the fish and how these fish are kind of progressing in their seasonal patterns. So with that, we'll kind of go ahead and jump in. Chip, can you kind of go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of the multi-species? I know you've been doing a ton of different fishing for just about anything but bass.
It's that time of year. Yeah, it's that time of year. Everything's going on. As you said, water temperature now getting down. I'm actually seeing some low 50s, some 51, 52 stuff way up lake. I don't know how far you go up, but way at the top, starting to see some low 50 stuff, 50, 51, 52. But in turn, that gets everything kind of going. Striper, they're literally from Dreer to Greenwood, or Dreer all the way past Hollywood Bridge, however far you want to go. The stripers are there. All y'all that are waiting on the birds to show up, the birds are here. A lot of bird chasers out. But what we have seen now, so the last time we talked, the stripers were kind of on the edge of the channels, still in the flats. We've had these fronts come in and it's pushing all the bait deep. The bait is sitting, if you go down around Dreer, Hollow Creek, Bear Creek, Crystal, a lot of your bait is in the ditches. The backs of the coves, or even out on the points, but the little secondary ditches that they'll form off the points. That's where the bait's laying, is in the backs of those ditches. So a lot of these stripers are laying on the bottom, and that's where they're at right now. Even up in the rivers, I'm seeing a lot of fish sitting on the bottom, and I think a lot of it has to do with that front coming in, to push the bait down, to push the fish down.
Yeah.
And just does the same thing with the cats up there. The cats they're starting to go a little bit deeper. Still catching them in that 30 to 40 foot range. They haven't went to that 50, 60 that I've seen a whole lot. A lot of really big cats. If you follow the catfishing world, a lot of big cats are really starting to show their face down lake, around Dreer Island, Hollow, Bear. I've seen 30 to 50s come out of there. So if you cat guys are getting run over top of each other up there in the rivers, go on down the lake. Another thing to be said about that is the perch. The perch are absolutely just coming out of the woodwork right now. Kind of been waiting for them to feed up. And typically, what's kind of weird, so usually the perch this time of year, I like fishing that 45 to 60 foot stuff. I usually see a lot of bigger perch come out of there. And I checked the spot yesterday, 25 foot of water, and I'm telling you, they were a pound and a half. So I know we have a lot of guys that watch this that look for the perch. Don't be afraid to go a little shallow right now. For some reason, they're up there a little shallower than I usually used to seeing them. And then what else? We got the crappie. The crappie bite on Murray right now is absolutely fire. Um, they're still on brush. I'm starting to see a little bit of open water fish. Not enough to scope and chase around yet for me. But they're stacked on the brush. Brush in that 20 to 25 foot range. Remember, if you're going to find, if you're scoping these brush piles and you see a pile that has hundreds and hundreds of fish on it, they tend to be small. You're going to find them brush piles that have the 12 to 30 fish on it. Those are going to be your brush piles that's holding your pound and a half, 2 pound crappie, or even bigger. But I had some go a little over 2 pounds this week, just throwing jigs. Jeff Rose Jigs up here in Salute area. He makes great jigs. Clear gold glitter, your money milk colors. And I actually had a lot on some light pink. So if you like jig colors, throwing jigs, that's kind of some colors I've been throwing, which is typical this time of year. Everybody likes that money milk monkey, whatever you call it. It's like almost like it's not a kind of pearl. It's kind of like a pearl flute type color, with a little bit more of a bluish tint to it.
Yeah.
I think Fish Doctor makes one called Shimmer Blue or something like that. But we're throwing 130 seconds with a little split shot above it. That's your crappie report. It's just a good time to be on the lake. Really, everything's biting. Other than I don't know how you bass are doing, but
yeah, I mean. It's kind of all over the place. I mean, I'll kind of talk a little bit about the bass, and I have run into obviously some other species as well while we've been out there. We actually, real quick, just with striper. I mean, to your point, I mean, the birds definitely. We were out there yesterday fishing some docks and turned around because we heard a bunch of birds, saw them diving in the water on some loons. Went over there, looked at the area with live scope. Gosh, there's hundreds of stripers around. We caught probably 5 or 6 of them real quick, and 2 of them were definitely keepers, probably those mid 20-inch size fish, and caught them on big swim baits and Alabama rigs and stuff. But yeah, also with the crappie too, seeing that on brush piles whenever we're fishing deep, we can see a ton of crappie. And it's pretty good to kind of be able to distinguish, if you are using live scope, what those fish look like. I mean, the crappie typically are going to be pretty stationary, right? And when you do throw a lure at them, they're going to move incredibly slow to the bait, whereas a bass is super curious. It's going to go check it out. Whether it eats it or not, that just depends on the mood of the fish. So as far as what we're doing on the bass side, back in November, man, it was numbers. I mean, we were catching, it's, between 20 and we had one day where we had 61 fish. I think we had a half day where we had 35. So, I mean, we were catching a ton of fish, decent size, nothing crazy. Typically fall historically on Murray is, you can get into those numbers, but it's harder to get some of those upper, around 20-pound bags consistently. Since the first couple fronts have come in, it seems like every front's kind of decreased the number of bites you're getting. It's kind of gone back down to like what I'd consider like a normal amount of bites right now. The couple trips I had last weekend, we had, I think, 18 one day and like 15 the next, so like kind of like that just mid-tier range number of fish being caught on a trip. Size has gone down a little bit. We had a one trip I think last Thursday. We had a couple of solid fish, that 4 to 5 pound class fish. But for the most part, it's pretty much just some cookie cutters. It's like a lot of those like 14-inch fish, and then you'll bump into those 2 to 3 pounders with the occasional like 4 to 5 pounder to go with it too. What are we targeting? We're targeting those channel swing docks, channel swing banks. Throwing worms. We got some on a jig. Some crankbaits are starting to fire off, and we're also getting some on Alabama rigs too. That bite's finally turned on. Seems like usually the first or second really good front of the year is when that Alabama rig bite turns on. Basically what I'm seeing too with this front is, obviously the weather has come in, dropped the water temperature super quick. These fish are like lethargic, right? So like, even if you see them on live scope, man, you throw in front of them and they might kind of go over to it a little bit, kind of slow, but then just like veer off, right? So it's almost like you have to like keep it in front of them for a while. And even if you don't have live scope, right, and you're just fishing, just kind of have patience and know like, hey, they're there. They're looking at your bait. Like from looking at live scope, I see it. Like they'll swim up to it, they'll look at it, and they'll think about it for like probably 10 or 15 seconds. Then all of a sudden, like you don't even really feel a bite. It just kind of gets heavy, and your line barely starts swimming off, and that's when you know you got one. But that's kind of what we're seeing. Probably 15 to 20 bites a day right now is about average, I'd say. You get a really good day, maybe 25 bites. Size all over the place, really small, all the way up to 5-pounders, 5.5-pounders. Seeing that kind of all over. So that's kind of for bass what I'm seeing. I think the big thing is right now as far as timing too. The morning bite for me has been a little bit slower, but then man, it's like clockwork. When 12 o'clock hits, bam, you start getting bites, and it's like you get 10 bites an hour for a couple hours, and it kind of starts to peter off again a little bit towards the end of the day. So kind of starting to really feel that like winter transition happen for us on the bass side. What about you, Chip, as far as your time frames? Are you getting bit consistently all day, or is it kind of like little spurts?
Yeah, I'm kind of back into we usually have a pretty good bite first thing in the morning right now, up until about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then it kind of goes dead until midday, and it picks up back up again. And it's kind of aggravating. You just gotta keep grinding at it. You can't just reel up and say, well, they're not going to bite no more, because that's usually when we pick up our big fish. Mm-hmm. Is somewhere in that lull. Those bigger fish, I guess they're just off pattern, and they'll feed when they want to feed. Right. And I wanted to, I always kind of listen to your report there and kind of go back through my head. One thing I wanted to mention too was, I kind of talking with some buddies. A lot of people keep talking about when they're going to drop the water. When they're going to drop the water. They're not dropping the water, y'all. They don't have time. No. There's been a handful of things, of course they dropped it in the hurricane field to back up. Excuse me. They didn't have time to drop it back down. And also, from what I understand, is the divers on the towers that are still down there working want the higher level, because it has something to do with consistency with, I don't know if it's pressure or water temperature or what, but they want a fuller lake than a lower lake. So y'all who are waiting for the water to drop, it ain't going to drop. Which will be honestly, it's going to be interesting. I think I don't know if it's going to change much, but I see a lot more growth on the bottom in the shallow water that we don't normally have this time of year. If you look at the docks, look at the ramps, we have a ton of algae growing that we don't normally have this time, because the water is typically much lower. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as we move forward into the spring too, as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's what I get asked a lot on trips as well, is like, what is the water water fluctuation as far as the height of the water level going to do? And last year it was lower, and that pulled a lot of those fish offshore. And there's still obviously a ton of fish as far as bass offshore, but it's not like the full populations offshore like last year. That's where right. It's like, man, you can go out there and target it. You can, like, a 20-pound bag is so doable. Whereas this year, they're there. The fish are there to catch it, but it's kind of like you really got to work for it, because there's good fish up shallow, there's good fish out deep. It's a timing deal, so it's kind of like the person that has the most productive spots and kind of can hit them all throughout the course of the day and bounce back and forth between shallow and deep and just hit that right brush pile or dock or something that's got that school of fish and they fire at the right time. That's kind of what it's going to take to do well. I know they've got a MPFL tournament coming up this week on Lake Murray. So obviously that's kind of what I personally would think. I think it's going to take probably between 55 and 65 pounds to win that tournament. So just kind of good, consistent bags will probably do really well on that one.
Yeah, I had one on pull up to me the other day, and he was, and I didn't know that. I thought they took live scope off of their boats. So weren't they the ones that kind of went off?
They did.
They can just practice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they did. They banned live scope for the MPFL starting next season. So this season they can still use it for their last tournament. And then MLF banned it for 2 out of the 3 periods that they have. And then Bassmaster is wide open. So it's kind of great because you get all 3 types, right? So whatever you want to see, you can find, right? So
that's right. He had his head stuck in the live scope, and I was on, bro. I was catching crappie on a brush pile, and I was watching him. I was like, man, he's just getting closer and closer. And finally, he looked up, and he's literally like 20 feet from my boat. And he's like, I am so sorry. I'm like, oh, that's good. He's like, I was steady just watching the brush pile. And honestly, he was probably just kind of looking to see what I was kind of fishing at there. He said, man, he said, I think every single shad in this lake is right here. And I said, bud, I hate to tell you this, but you can throw a dart on a Lake Murray map, and there's going to be this much bait there.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see this lake have see water temps get into the mid 40s, 44, 45 for like 2 weeks, kill some of this bait off. We have a surplus of bait. It's not like we're going to kill it all. But I think it would kind of help our fish out a little bit, as far as just
making them
so
commit.
Much bait in this lake.
Yeah, making them commit. Kind of what we were talking about. We kind of have the perfect storm right now where it's like it got cold, so the fish are lethargic. And then on top of that, we have too much bait, so they don't have to be quite as opportunistic, right? So it's like they
swim through the schools and open their mouth.
And you'll see that, right? I mean, like, that's what I was saying. We're seeing these fish go down on the bait, and they're just, like, not eating, right? It's like 1 out of whatever right now, 20 maybe, 1 out of 10, whatever that ratio looks like. But, yeah, so I agree with you 100%. We definitely could have some of the bait kind of die off. I think that would help literally every type of fish bite on this lake right now.
I don't see that happening, though. I think I've seen us have a bait kill, like, once or twice in the last 15, 20 years, I swear. But I'm going to tell you this. Anytime there's a bait kill, though, it freaking makes a killer spoon bite.
Yeah, with that spoon bite, I agree 100% with that bait fish kill off. I mean, I think that's exactly what would happen, right? I mean, kind of to your point, what you'd see is those fish kind of start dying off and floating down there. And then that spoon's going to make them react when they don't want to.
And I tell you, kind of off subject here, but anytime we do have those little bit of kills, and the spoon bite gets really good in the wintertime and into the spring, you can almost bet for a even hotter bite in the summertime on the spoons. They literally, it's like they keep it in the back of their minds as they go forward and get to the summer. Like, man, 2 months ago we were eating these fluttering fish, and here they are again in the summertime. But I don't know. That's, like I said, that's all wishful thinking. But
yeah, we'll see. You never know, right? I mean, it's supposed to be a little.
I mean, it could snow tomorrow. It could be 80 degrees tomorrow. We don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, that's South Carolina for you, right? I mean, you just never know what you're going to get. Is it going to be the upper teens or like it was today, almost 70? So. But, yeah, that's pretty much what I've got. I mean, as far as the bass fishing side, lake conditions, Chip, do you have anything else to add to just kind of wrap it up?
I think we're pretty good. We got Christmas coming up here soon, so y'all make sure y'all get plenty of gear out there or holler at us to go test out your new gear.
Yeah.
And we'll put you on some fish for sure.
Yep, that's right. The wintertime usually is a great time to go because you don't have to contend with all the boat traffic, and it's your best opportunity to catch some of the biggest fish that swim in the lake. So with that, we'll kind of wrap it up. Last thing I got new hats out there for the business, leather patch, Richardson 112s. Look it up on the website. Pretty great. Like your hat as well up there, Chip. And
hey, I just bought this today. I've been needing a new one, and I was like, you know what? I went. Of course, the wind was blowing, 30 plus mile an hour on a lake day, so I didn't fish today. And so I went and spent money on junk, Christmas presents and all that stuff. And so I treated myself to a new hat.
No, that seems about right. Now it's time to go out there and get it fishy on Lake Murray, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, y'all have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Appreciate it, bud.